So Yield Plus is open and we have protocols signing up. The registration can be either done via the portal, so tokenyield.io. There's also instructions if you want to join via command line, if someone wants to be adventurous and sign up via that. So there's two methods to sign up as a protocol. And I'm also preparing for the beta launch of the rewards happening the 28th. Where it is still scheduled to have rewards being allocated. It will be smaller than the official launch. This is mostly a beta launch to implement the reward mechanism, get protocols to know how to receive rewards. That way they can implement either smart contract implementations on redistribution. We expect protocols to take about 2 to 3 weeks or so to implement the reward redistribution within their protocols, because it does take some development work to do that. And yeah, so far we've got 11 protocols that have signed up, and there's $22 million worth of TVL that has been registered. It is growing as the price of EOS grows. So that's beneficial. And also one of the requirements to join is to also participate in EOS Recover. So eosrecover.com. Projects will be required to sign up to that as well. To be eligible for rewards, there is a minimum TVL requirement, and that is 200,000 EOS worth of value. It could be a combination of Tether and EOS, but the sum value must exceed 200,000 EOS. So right now, I think there's a call out for Vigor to go above that threshold. I think they're missing about 7,000 EOS to go above the minimum. So anybody who's involved with Vigor, I would recommend throwing them a bone to go above that minimum threshold. Not an endorsement for Vigor. I'm just saying that they're on the cusp of that minimum requirement. There is a lot of projects that are currently building their DeFi protocols. So you can register at any time. You do not need to meet the minimum threshold to sign up. What will happen is that once you sign up, your TVL will show on the website. And then that way it's an indicator of how much TVL is missing on your protocol. So anybody can sign up at any time. And I advise every protocol that is on EOS currently to sign up and aim to get to that minimum.
I'll add something to. So there's the funding. So because of the way EOSIO.grants, the permission structure works is every time funding comes out of there, it requires a time delay, essentially. So we push the multi-sig to provide the initial funding to Yield Plus, their multi-sig. Like Denis explained, it is a phased approach. So in the first phase, it is a lower yield subsidy and also a lower amount of capital being transferred. So the initial phase, it's 25,000 EOS. It'll be executed on Friday. It shouldn't really affect anyone except for Yield Plus smart contract. The Yield Plus smart contract will go live and start distributing rewards at a 1% subsidy rate on Sunday. And just some of the reasoning behind this, we'll recommunicate it Friday. Everything's been tested, audited, running on the test nets, so it's good to go. But it's always a good best practice to roll out slowly if possible, especially when dealing with a lot of capital, because in the Yield Plus blue paper, the amount being asked was much more significant. I always forget if it's 600K or 625K, but that many EOS. So that it's a significant amount, and that's per quarter. So rather than going all in initially, we will go through this testing phase. And the phase won't be too extensive. We want to get to the full rollout as soon as possible. What we're looking for before going into a full rollout is we need the DeFi protocols themselves to help us out. Because what Yield Plus is I could say B2B, like business to business, but it's really like protocol to protocol. Same thing as a B2B in traditional world, though, is we're providing this yield subsidy from the Yield Plus smart contract to the DeFi protocols in reward for their TVL with the two hard assets of EOS and USDT. But what those DeFi protocols do with that yield subsidy is up to them. So as we've been talking more and more about Yield Plus, the media has been covering it. We've been seeing a lot of questions, and they're good questions. And it's from token holders themselves, people like everyone on this call, is how do I benefit from Yield Plus? And the answer is the DeFi protocols need to tell you, because the DeFi protocols are the ones getting incentivized and rewarded from this program. So what I'm looking to get from them, and this has already been communicated to them, is I want them to ramp up their marketing and messaging and comms to their own DeFi communities and tell the token holders using your protocols how do you plan to benefit your end users from this yield subsidy? And there's multiple means of them doing so. They could redistribute to EOS, they could do token buybacks, they could add it to liquidity pools, or they could just maybe fund their own development, and that's what they're doing. But they really need to communicate that to the end users, because I can't tell you how many questions I've gotten about that is, okay, like I'm staking my EOS now, I want to benefit from Yield Plus. How do I do it? As an end user, you only benefit if the protocol decides what the change in incentive structure is to the users of their DeFi protocols. So during this phased rollout, one, it's being done from a safety standpoint of let's test everything on the mainnet, even though we're pretty confident it's good, very confident, but also give them the chance to, one, communicate to their user bases of how their user base is going to benefit. Then that helps me answer questions, because I'm getting a lot of questions from token holders and I don't have the answers. Once the DeFi protocols communicate how they're going to distribute this yield, then there's the other component, which is a more technical component, is, okay, let's say I want to do an automated buyback and burn, or maybe automated add it to liquidity pools, which liquidity pools. So there's a lot of logic involved in this, because all of what's going to happen on chain initially is the Yield Plus rewards contract is just going to send EOS tokens to some designated contract for a DeFi protocol. That DeFi protocol needs to automate what happens to that EOS once it's received. So the logic for any of those mechanisms I mentioned, even a redistribution to their own token holders, for example, would require a smart contract to be deployed with some kind of logic in it. So by doing this phased rollout, it is basically a carrot being dangled for the DeFi protocols themselves. Do you want to just hang out here at this 1% yield subsidy, or do you want us to bump it up to 5%? Because I think all of the token holders want 5%. I think the DeFi protocols want 5%. So it's really holding them accountable to hold up their end, which is the business to consumer aspect. And that's what's to be expected over this phased rollout. So ideally, we'll start seeing messages rolling out starting this Sunday, or maybe sooner and definitely later, of the DeFi protocols themselves communicating to you all. If you stake your EOS or USDT into their protocols, how do you benefit? So that's going to be some continuous drip marketing. And then from there, once enough of them make this public, then we can consolidate all of these different ideas into a single post and start pitching that to some external media so that they start talking about Yield Plus more. And at that point, we should be ready for a go, no-go vote with the Yield Plus group and the ENF to decide if all of the criteria that we expected from the DeFi protocols, if those deliverables have been met. Are we happy with the communications we've seen from them? How close are they to deploying their distribution contracts or whatever contracts they need? And then also deciding on a target date. So if we vote go, this will happen, the date's not set, but mid-September, let's say. Then at that point, we will set another date, and that date will be when the 5% token rewards are basically activated and turned on live. And we could be very strategic with that timing. I'm looking at the consensus upgrade, for example. We could do it right before that, right after that. We got the EVM launching in October. So really just figuring out where on the calendar to flip the switch on.